Hello, Mark Royd Larson here for the Dreamcatcher podcast. Thanks for joining us. My guest today is Isaac Mashman. How are you doing, Isaac?
Mark, great. Thank you for the invitation to be here.
Well, thanks for being on the podcast. I appreciate that. So Isaac, where are you located at?
Little Rock, Arkansas, my friends. Been here for the past couple of years.
So where were you at before that?
I was living in Bakersfield, California for a few summers, and then I'm originally from Jacksonville, Florida. I did my entrepreneur sleep on the floor, sleep on the mat, kind of thing over a couple summers, and then took a month and went over to France and came back, and then went back to Bakersfield, and eventually met my now fiance through Twitter, and she was in Little Rock, and so I've been here for the past 3-4 years, and never thought I'd be in the state that most people forget about, but there's a lot to do.
You never know where life's going to take you, that's for sure. So what did you think of France?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I think the cultural differences, I mean, we had a conversation in private a few weeks ago. The cultural differences are definitely based around life's simple things compared to, the hustle culture. Let's go ahead and make billions of dollars, which I think both have plenty to offer and, are great perspectives. But, the fact that businesses close down at 12 p.m. on a Sunday, and then everybody takes the rest of the day off, or you have farmers markets where you don't only have, local goods, but you have olives that are homegrown on a field and able to taste wine that is directly from the source, and walk through the grapevines and the vineyards and eat grapes, off of the vine. I think it was a tremendous experience. I loved it. I think that there are moments where I wish I didn't come back because of how simple it was, but I also wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't, come back and return from that little hiatus.
So would you ever, part of the year there, part of the year in Little Rock? Have you ever thought about doing that split?
I don't know if I would choose France specifically.
Really?
Politically, I think that there is a lot of unrest there, but other parts of Europe, such as Spain, absolutely, Portugal, areas like that. And the French language, my brain is not wired to speak French. It's absolutely not. I tried to, and I'm like, je ne parle pas français. Like, I do not speak French. That was like the extent of what I knew. But in terms of a Spanish-speaking country, I have a decent working knowledge, and I can learn Spanish really quick. And but I do think spending part-time in a different country would be good for, number one, recuperating, and number two, having a new perspective compared to just limiting yourself. I mean, the majority of Americans, like 60+% never travel outside of the country, which I think is just ridiculous.
So do I. I do. And like when we talked earlier about my wife and I going to Italy last year, and it does give you a whole new perspective. And they take their time when they're going to close. In Italy, it was about 5:30, and they were going to have the meal with the family, and they meant it. So, and it does give you a whole, because Italy was not at all like I thought it was going to be, especially the people. And it is too bad people don't, travel a little bit, but they always do their some days. It's like they don't have enough money, enough time, whatever and it's just like you make time, because if something bad happens, you find the money, and you might as well do it for something good. So
well, it's a lot cheaper to travel too than people think. I mean, if they were to put aside $5,000 over the span of a couple of years, like they could go and take a really nice trip for a week out of country, book a plane ticket for, like, my plane ticket one way from Los Angeles to Charles de Gaulle in Paris was $400.
Oh, wow.
Growing up, I used to think that, if you had to book a plane ticket, you're talking $1,200-$1,800. And I literally spent $400 for a one-way ticket. And then within a week of me deciding to come back to the States, I got a similarly priced ticket at, I think, $380. So it's like, it's not that expensive. And especially if you have friends or you develop a network there, you don't have to spend all the money on room and board like you would typically spend, going into some high-end hotel.
Yeah, and that's one thing I think we talked to with this podcast. I've been invited just about every place all around the world, which has been awesome. Still, I think have a running open invitation to go to Portugal next month. And so have you been to Portugal?
In the airport, so not technically enough to claim. Also enough to see the McDonald's in the Lisbon airport. That's it.
Okay. Well, you were there at least. But
I suppose I do have that stamp.
Yep, you did. So, are you traveling anymore, or any trips coming up?
That'll be big in 2025. I mean, I have a speaking engagement in Denver, Colorado in October, which I'll be going to. So excited about that. Past couple of years, I haven't traveled a whole lot as I was figuring out my business and focusing on what I'm trying to, become the man I'm trying to become.
Right.
But next year, I anticipate I'll be going all over the place and getting not only speaking engagements and just different opportunities to meet some of the wonderful people I have in my network, but I've never met face to face yet.
Yeah, that is so cool. That is. So do you know where you're speaking at in Denver? What location?
It'll be, I don't remember the exact hotel name, but it's relatively close to the airport. And
Okay.
I'll be there for two
Yeah.
different days and be doing a training for some contractors that are actually in the aquascaping koi pond space,
Oh,
outdoor
cool.
water feature space, which is quite atypical to what the audience I would typically speak to. But the beautiful thing about personal branding in my business is it applies to whatever industry or vertical that person is in and what they
Right.
represent. So I'll be able to tailor that conversation there. Really, really excited about that.
That is cool. So talking about personal branding, that must be what you do. And how did you get into that area?
Mhm. A lot of trial and error, and I could summarize my entire process journey over the past 6 years now
Right.
as this pursuit of clarity, this understanding that, all right, this vehicle, this business isn't quite the vehicle or the opportunity I thought it was. Let me try something else. And I actually just made a post earlier. A lot of times people jump from business to business to business to business, and they never settle on that one thing, and they never
Right.
choose that and make that decision to build that one thing. And so they never see success. And so after going from the network marketing industry 4 different times, 3 different companies,
Okay.
music management, podcast management, social media, all that crap, I realized that I had a natural ability for number one, speaking, and number two, for consulting. I became that go-to person in my network for, hey,
Okay.
Isaac, what can I do to make my page better? And it was so simple at the time, but when you have enough people that are coming to you for help or advice, you realize that, all right, maybe this is I don't want to use some spiritual sense calling, but it is something that I could see myself building. And that led into
Right.
launching a public relations firm, doing that for several years, but still at the backbone of that, it was consulting. And so in
Okay.
2024, I launched Mashman Consulting Group, which I'm now currently building. And that's my vehicle, which I can say in full confidence that I have more clarity in what I'm doing now than I've ever had in my life.
That's always a good sign. You're
Definitely.
getting in flow. So no, I mean, so okay, this what you're doing now. What do you envision like in a couple of years? What would you really like it to look like in a year or two?
Well, by the end of next year, I want to have a team between, I haven't decided on 10 or 20 consultants. I'd much
Ah,
rather focus on quality versus quantity because that's the
true.
business structure. But having a team of consultants working for MCG, Mashman Consulting Group, and then by the year 2035, casting that long-term, right, Deep Dreamcatcher podcast, setting this out for 10 years from now, I
Right.
want to have 500 consultants working for us, and then having the number one personal brand consultancy worldwide. There are consultancies like Boston Consulting Group, McKinsey, and they, focus on business management and consulting at that high level for corporations. And I don't see why we can't corner the market in the personal branding space as more and more people choose to become influencers in their own definitions and becoming those public figures. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's a need, especially
Yeah.
there is a need for moral and ethical, business owners
Amen.
in
Yes.
the personal
Agreed.
branding space or in the public relations space. There's a lot of pay to win, fake followers, egos, vanity involved. And so
Oh yes.
navigating that vanity, right? Because people will always be vain, but
Oh, yeah.
navigating that vanity in a way that actually has a foundation and, all right, this is right versus this is wrong. Like, yeah, you can have the followers. That's great. But that
Yep.
doesn't mean you bought your account or you pay for some backdoor Forbes article, right? And so navigating that area in a proper way that people can be proud of that ensures longevity is
Hmm.
really important to me.
And it shows. I mean, I can feel the passion coming all the way through the screen here. So I mean, really, I mean, so gosh, if somebody wanted, like myself, wanted to work with you or somebody
Mhm.
else, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, very easy to find. If you wanted to, work with me personally, you can reach out on social media. I'm at
Okay.
Isaac Mashman everywhere. But on our website, mashmancg.com, we have this really cool artificial intelligent bot named KPI. And
Okay.
KPI's number one objective is to get you to watch a sales presentation that I delivered that covers pretty much the A to Z of what we provide and what we offer. And then from there, you watch that 16-minute overview presentation, you fill out a quick onboarding survey, and then we'll reach out to you to set up, a time to meet or the next steps, based off of your responses on that form.
That is awesome. So you talk about AI. I've been taking, actually, I just got done with the class that I've been taking, it's daily, on artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
So how do you think artificial intelligence, as much as you can, will change your industry?
I actually just wrote an article on this a couple of days ago. Artificial intelligence, in my opinion, isn't this Terminator-esque end world game. I don't think that's the case.
I don't
But I
either.
do believe that AI right now and how it's being executed is being done wrong. And what I mean by that is people are expecting AI to do all of the heavy lifting for them when they should view AI as almost like the spotter in the gym that is helping you lift the weights, that's encouraging you, that's training harder, that's, helping you improve efficiency and optimize your time. And so that's my perspective on AI. So we've already implemented AI to help us write press releases, to help us write articles, to help us do research, and using those different use cases have saved us a lot of time and a lot of money. And then you also have like video editors. So for example, my short videos, I'm able to use an AI tool and get a video edited with captions, emojis, unique music, focus zooms, all of that in
Yep.
60 seconds, when I would have had to pay a video editor $50 to
Yeah.
$60 for one video, 6 years ago.
Yep.
And I think that, more people are going to adopt AI into their personal lives as companions of sorts to, help them get more results in less time. And so in terms of personal branding specifically, just seeing that compound over time and people getting results faster will be really great to watch.
Yeah, it is. And 60 seconds, that long? I,
Literally, I can upload the
I can
video,
see.
it'll trim it, it'll do all of that within
It,
60 seconds and I can export it. No
yeah,
joke.
I had something the other day and it did like 10 seconds and it's like, oh my gosh. Because I did put some stuff for Dreamcatcher in there and it did way more than I thought, which it was awesome. And it's just like, how could you not love this? I
Mhm.
mean, but yeah, and that's what I'm learning in this class. How do you bring AI to the person on the street? Because they're all scared that it's going to take their job away and all this stuff. And um, it's interesting. And actually, where I just got done with the class was actually in a coffee shop and asked the people what they thought of it. Everyone was negative on it,
Mm.
and so it's got a ways. But I mean, what a tool! Everybody is just like a tool that you. It's amazing. So, but so do you have how many clients do you work with at a time, or do you have
Mhm.
a limit, or
Personally, I like to work with about 10 clients a month. That is like my bread and butter because consultations are very, I suppose you could say, in depth, and I have to take the time to actually map out and strategize them. Hey, these are the next steps you need to do. Let's say somebody wants to go and expand the distribution of their podcast. Well, I need to take a couple of hours and plan out. All right, well, these are all the places you need to get listed on. These are the things you need to do, and then also looking into what they're doing with their personal brand currently and evaluating their long-term ambitions and the driving forces. So it's a very macroscopic approach, and
okay?
so I usually do consultations only 3 days a week, sometimes Saturdays. So Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. I could be doing consultations every day of the week, but
Not bad.
I want to reserve my time and make that time exclusive because again, Mark, it's working with me personally. You're paying $1,000 for a couple hours of my time, and that's a significant investment. Number one, and number
Yep.
two, that means that I have to deliver on that. It's not like
True.
I'm charging $20 for a coaching call. Like it's no,
Right.
like
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
consulting you at a very high level, so it's high quality, low quantity. And I take pride in that. And that also improves the quality of the people I'm working with because
Yes.
they respect my time and they
Exactly.
respect, that investment and know that, hey, this is a long-term investment. This is a long-term relationship. And that if Isaac says I need to jump, I need to jump. If he says I need to do X, Y, and Z for homework, I need to make sure I execute that because I'm not going to do it for you, but I will walk with
Exactly.
you every step of the way and do it with you.
Yes. So do you work with people around the world or just the United States?
Right now, all of my clients have been in the United States, but we have the capacity to work with people internationally. I was just having a conversation the other day with somebody out of India who could possibly be a consultant because we're expanding the consultants team, right? And
Okay.
so I was thinking about, how it could benefit being able to reach other people in different time zones because you do have to factor in time zones when you're working with somebody.
Yeah.
But right now, all of our clients are US based.
Okay, awesome. So, I mean, you speak so well. I can tell you're awesome. You're a speaker. So, do
Thank
you
you.
speak on stage or have a podcast?
So I'm working on launching a new podcast before the end of the year. That'll be
Okay.
called Call It Excessive with Isaac Mashman. And the premise of that show is every single successful person, whether you're a business owner or a creator or an entertainer, you have to do something that is, in terms of the public, excessive, going to a higher level. And so I'll be highlighting
True.
some of those stories and also using the time to share some insights into personal branding, my own life, my own process. I had another podcast, Chase the Vision with Isaac Mashman, which I canceled because I felt like it was so cliche. And so this new show will be 2 years in the making in terms of my mind and, what I want it to be. And I'm working out the final kinks on, the interview style and just the kind of guest, but it's going to be a little bit more exclusive on who I bring on and just having those, high quality conversations with people and saying, hey, all right, you've reached this point. I want to get into the nitty gritty. I suppose where it'll stand out is the tactical advice. I want to pry in and be like, all right, you could interview me and say, Isaac, what is personal branding? And I could give you an answer. But what are the steps to building your personal brand? That's an entirely different beast, but that provides the most strategic value. And again, you think about AI is able to answer a lot of the questions for you, but to actually get that strategic tailored advice is something else.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it definitely is. So for somebody, let's explain what personal branding is. I know what it is, but for the audience.
Do you know what it is though?
Well, it's actually
what is your definition?
Myself. I'm putting myself out to the world that I am a person that is, I help like with AI, bringing the stuff to the people that are struggling with making a living. I make it so I enable them to catch their dreams. I'm the one that shows you that there's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be obstacles. I learned that when my wife had her advanced cancer. And when you find money for medical expenses, you can find money for anything. And that all you have is now. And if you're going to get those dreams, you better do it right now. And that you need to continually learn and advance yourself, because otherwise you're going to get left behind very quickly. Yes. I have found that out with AI. But I'm with this AI, I'm working with 2 other guys that we're going to try and bring it to the people, the ones that are afraid, because if we can show them, what's in it for them, and because otherwise they're so busy, they're trying to barely pay their bills and all this stuff. So I'm kind of a champion for the small guy, I'm trying to get them so they can live their dreams too. Because most people, some people have wealth, but they're still so busy that they still don't catch their dreams. But just have people believe that everything is possible, which it is, and maybe not easy, and more likely not easy, but that is possible, and that I will be behind you, supporting you to get your dream, whatever that whatever that process is. So I'm just for I feel like I'm for the person that's kind of overlooked, and I guess maybe that's because so many people, it's so conservative here, and everybody can't figure out what I'm doing here or why, get a job, and it's just like, well, jobs are probably not going to be around like you think anyway. And you better keep learning, keep improving yourself. So yeah, whatever it is to champion for the small guy, I would do it for everybody, but I find most of those people already are kind of past where I'm at. So at least right now. So
I like that. Well, to go back to your question about what your personal brand is, your personal brand is you. It's who you are. Yep. And I've created a proprietary strategy called identity positioning. And what this is it takes the personal characteristics of the individual and the professional career that they have, and it positions them in such a way to where they can develop that faithful following. Because I don't want to just connect with you for being a coach. If I'm hiring a coach, I want to connect with the man, right? And so if we were to think about your own marketing message, right? So we would have a personal hook and then a professional sales pitch. So one of the things that we could do for your personal hook would be handyman turned coach who discovered there's more to life than odd jobs. And then you could go into the professional side, which is I help people who feel overlooked rediscover that passion for life, right? So now you have personal hook, professional marketing message. Just looking at you, for example, if we think about my own message, it is addicted to coffee and standards. Number one, I came into this interview with a cup of coffee, right? I'm living on brand.
Yep, that's a good thing.
And then I say that I help emerging and established public figures optimize and scale their personal brands. So you have that personal rapport piece, that thing that establishes a connection. And then you can go and lead them into this is what I can do for you. Because people do business with who they know, like, and trust. And so I am of the school of thought that you have your personal brand from the moment you were born, right? Your mom determined your name, right? Your parents, your political affiliation, where you were born, your faith, the God you prayed to, all of these different things, and nurtured into you these characteristics as you were growing up, which have developed you, right? Were you that teacher's pet, or were you the class clown? But now as professionals and as adults, we can leverage our personal brands to drive money, mission, vanity, right? Those are the three overarching reasons.
No, that is awesome. So, I mean, it just, so what is next? What is that dream that you have that you still haven't attained, that's still off over there on the horizon that you would like
Yeah.
to do in the next how many years?
Well, building MCG into the number one firm, but
Okay.
MCG is one aspect of me. It is my vehicle to other investments.
Okay.
So buying and investing in commercial real estate, investing in startups, being that, Mark Cuban-esque figure, I suppose, who's
Okay.
enjoying
Awesome.
life, or to use a better example, Richard Branson, who's just living that lifestyle. I do like
Oh
those
yeah.
nicer things in life. And growing up in a single parent household, watching my mom struggle, I
Yeah.
now realize that I don't want that. I want to go to the other
Yeah.
side of things and the
Yep.
extreme and enjoy life and be able to provide that life for my future kids. And, all of my businesses are named after me. They're named
Okay.
after Mashman. And
Okay.
so I want my kid in the future to be able to take pride in what his dad does and be able to have that family business, c'est la vie old Americana style. I think
Right.
would be awesome.
It is. It's cool.
I think that is what we need to get back to as a country, and taking pride in our work,
Amen.
taking pride in what we're building.
I love that. You ever thought about running for political office? I would vote for you.
Oh Lord. Yes.
Really? Have you? Awesome. I would vote for you.
Yes. It's and that is a challenging perspective for me because I typically lean right fiscally in terms of money.
Okay.
Like, I want you to get your hand out of my pocket. I do not want to pay Uncle Sam. I don't like
I
that.
agree.
Right. I think that if we were to have one flat rate, have 10% or 15% all in, I believe that property taxes should be abolished. I don't believe that we should ever be taxed on the property we own, because then that means if you
Yes.
don't pay it, they take your
I
things
am
away.
so on board with
So
you on that. Yes.
does ownership really exist? I would much rather adopt something like you have in Spain or Dubai, where you have a stamp that whenever you make the sale, you have a lump sum you need to pay to the government, but then you own your property. I think that's much
Wow.
more efficient. And we could get the money for other, things, for example, the roads and the schools and all that other funding. I believe that there are other avenues that could probably be explored in order to achieve that, whether that's an open fund that people donate to, whether that
Okay.
is a tax that might be on groceries. So you might eliminate the property tax and you might increase the tax on other goods or other items, whatever it might be. I don't care.
Okay.
I think that should be explored. And so you asked me that, and I do have very conservative fiscal policies. I would say that in previous years, I had left-leaning social things and
Okay.
social beliefs, but with how far that left pendulum has swung, I would say that I'm more still on the middle to right in terms of, social policies as well. So I wouldn't want to run necessarily as some conservative nor some liberal, but the independent gets nowhere. And that's a
true.
piece of advice, actually, a representative from the state of Arkansas told me. He said, if you were to run as an independent, you get no funding, you get no access, you get no, marketing, no brand association. And so it would have to be a sacrifice, I suppose, and a hit to ego to choose a political party if I was to run.
Okay. I can
I've
see
thought
you.
this out.
I can tell, and that's so cool. I mean, it is so cool because I could definitely see you. And I'm talking about eliminating. There's a faction in Nebraska is trying to eliminate property taxes, and I was just having this discussion the other day. I did not realize that with Spain and Dubai, that I like that idea. Because it's just like, so, I was talking about my iPhone. I hadn't paid my iPhone taxes. I paid it to begin with, but I think it's my yearly iPhone tax, and people would think that's crazy, But if you say that on property, the other stuff, people think it's like, well, that's the way it is. It's like, why is that? You bought that property or your house. Why do we think we have to continue? And like you say, if you don't, then they take it away from you. And it's been a conversation I've been having the last couple of weeks. Because Nebraska, my dad moved from Colorado to Nebraska, and Nebraska's kind of the tax me to death state. I mean, he was in Colorado with a $400,000 house, and now he's in Nebraska, central Nebraska, with a lot less, valued house. And I think he was paying $1,200 in Colorado, and now he's paying $4,000 a year for his property taxes. And he's like, "This is the worst thing coming back to Nebraska."
Yeah.
And it's that's definitely a discussion that we need to have. That is for sure.
Well,
so
that is a flaw in conservative states. A lot of times in conservative states, you have high taxes. And then if you were to look at the medium income is lower. And so in Arkansas, you have higher tax rates. And I was just telling you about, a couple minutes before we started, about how the governor reduced the income tax. She's right leaning, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but
Right.
she's reduced the income tax rate by like 1.1%, I believe, for the highest bracket, which you don't need to make six figures to be in the highest bracket. And
Right.
then she's also reduced the corporate income tax. Well, why would you do that, right? Why are you taxing the big guys less? Well, you want to make it appealing for a corporation to move into the state to where they can keep
Exactly.
their, their overhead as low as possible. And if you're getting taxed, an extra 1% off of $1 billion, you're looking at $1 million in extra taxes, which how many jobs could that create off of $1 million, right? You're talking
Win-win.
20
Yeah.
people that
Yep.
you can now employ off of that income. And so now you're thinking more jobs. And so you have to make your state as appealing as possible.
Yep.
And then also tourism, or having implants from other states to come into that state. And, we look at Missouri or Mississippi, or in your case, Nebraska, higher income tax, lower medium income. And I think that's a problem and that's a flaw,
I
and
100% agree.
again, you have less population. So where does that money come from? So yeah, you would think you might need to charge higher. But again, I think that the system that we're currently in is a system that's 100 years outdated.
So I so agree on that. So, could you see yourself ever, would you want to see yourself as president of the United States?
Absolutely not. President, no. Other political office, possibly. And the reason I say that is the president of the United States, I believe that you run for politics for two reasons, and I think you cannot run without one or the other.
Okay.
And I believe that you could run solely for vanity. And solely because you think about what kind of person would get involved with politics.
Right.
The person who, career politicians, especially Pelosi, Biden, Bernie, 50 plus years, being in politics is not supposed to be a career. You're not supposed to go in and make millions and millions of dollars.
Yep.
You're supposed to go in out of service. But
Yes.
if you were to go in out of vanity, now you have power and you can control the cards.
Yep.
Why is Pelosi's portfolio exceeding every other portfolio? It's
exactly.
Obviously you have the insider information.
Yep.
I don't care what you can say. Oh, no, it's not inside. Sure. I will not believe you.
Yeah.
So I believe there's that vanity aspect.
Yep.
And then the other is the genuine desire to do good. And where I fall into the category is a mix of both. Absolutely, there's that pride in going and being in a high position, and as well as that desire to do good, right? And like I said a couple minutes ago, why would you build your personal brand? Money, mission, and vanity. Those are the three main reasons. And I'm not here to say that I don't have a little bit of vanity. I don't have a little bit of that greed. I don't have a little bit of that. No, I'm not going to lie to you because I'd be dishonest. And so I think being in a political office would be great for pride. I believe it would be great for mission. And I believe it would be great, not in terms of making money from that political office directly, but once you're a senator, you can write a book and do speaking engagements. And now for the rest of your life, like you're a Vietnam veteran, you could go around with a hat that says senator, right? Like, you might not do that, but there are so many things that it's your credibility, it's your authority, it's your presence, it's your respect. I remember in school, we had the lieutenant governor of Florida come in, a couple times, and it was the lieutenant governor. It wasn't the governor, but there was still pride in knowing, hey, he's some big shot. Or meeting the mayor or meeting a district, council member. It's still a representative in a high office where they had to earn those votes to get elected. And so president, no. I would say senator, possibly. And I also believe I would probably start with a local office first and a local representative. And then from there, if I chose to go and make that, climb. But there's a lot of transparency that is involved. And I don't like being that transparent. I have no issue sharing my life, but I don't want to have you pry into my high school girlfriend. I don't want you to have to go and dig that deep and think about, look into trauma, look into this, look into, oh, he said this on a podcast in 2018. Like, I don't necessarily love that idea.
No, I wouldn't either. No, you got to have, and I don't know how these people that put up with that do have their whole life dug into continually.
It's a radical acceptance. That's the only answer.
No, it'd be. So, have you ever thought about doing a TEDx talk? You're so passionate about that. Have you really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one of those things that I think I'll probably knock out next year, or maybe 2026. It's not a priority, but TED does have a rigorous process, and so I don't even know if they have a TED, talk specifically in Little Rock. I should look into bringing one here if they don't, because again, Little Rock is a large enough city. It's a capital city. It has 200,000 people in surrounding areas. Conway, which is about an hour north, has multiple colleges, and so I think there would definitely be an appeal there. But TED, you think about why would you do a TED talk? Well, you have that exposure at scale because
You
it's a
do.
well-established brand. And so now you can
Yep.
say, oh, I'm a TED speaker. So now
Yep.
you instantly have that credibility. So it is something I could do. I'd have to really spend more time. I can naturally go on stage and talk about personal branding for an hour,
Yeah.
but tailoring it and delivering a concise speech in 15 minutes is more
Yeah.
challenging than delivering a keynote or a Q&A over an hour.
I could see that. I could definitely see that. So I got to ask, this is being the Dreamcatcher podcast. What did you want to be when you were growing up? What was your dreams when you were a kid?
I went from dream to dream to dream. I never had that one concise, I
Okay.
want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor. I never had that. I toyed around with the idea of going into the military, becoming a general. I toyed with the idea of NCIS, like you see Jethro and you see, the Naval Academy there.
Yeah.
I toyed with the idea of going to marketing, the idea of being a lawyer, but nothing really stuck, which is why in my senior year, when I was presented with the opportunity of let me go to college and get a full ride scholarship for marketing or why would I do that? Versus let me find myself, and explore who I am, right? Some people go to college and go into drugs, sex, and money and all that stuff to figure themselves out. I just decided to go into business and take that path instead. So I never had that one firm dream, but as now I'm this businessman, I do have that dream, which is continuously developed and evolved.
That is awesome. I love that. So today's dreams, I mean, would you like to travel the world and be able to do what you do now? Or, I mean, we were talking about earlier about, I mean, that would be, so, I mean, that's cool. So are you developing other things in this business that, I mean, we don't need to necessarily know, but you're probably developing more or?
Well, our primary focus is consultations. That's going to always be the primary focus of the business, offering those custom tailored consultations. We take that person, evaluate where they want to go, where they're at, what they've done, what they've accomplished, what's driving them. We provide a strategy and help them with their personal brands. On side of that, we also have a training platform, which is already developed. We just have to make some tweaks to it and publish it, but it's called Unrivaled MCG. And so that has a bunch of different resources and things that people can use. And every client will get access to the resource library. And you can also purchase other programs for, we're going to be developing a public speaking one, a podcasting one, a self-publishing book, all those different programs that could be tailored. But Mark, I wanted to be very careful in terms of getting that published because you have to have a track record of results before you just create some course and you create some training platform. I want to make sure that this is done and it looks great. It looks very corporate, very modern at the same time.
Sure.
But I'm quite proud of that. It's a big money pit and time-consuming pit right now, so we haven't prioritized it as much.
No. So have you thought about writing a book, or maybe you have written a book? Hey, you have written a book.
Right here.
Okay,
so
awesome.
This is Personal Branding, a Manifesto on Fame and Influence. This is a rather short read. I wrote this in 2021. I am working on the second edition, and I don't want to write some social media guide or strategies to grow your Instagram account because what works today might not work 5 years from now. And so my book is very philosophical in approach. So I explain what is your personal brand and why you should be building it. Now, the second edition, I do lean into, I'm about 100 pages into that. I'll have, it'll be probably 200 plus pages by the end. And I go into reputation management strategies to build relationships. I talk about, a lot of the things that I talk about in the book, but more in depth of, hey, these are the things that you haven't even thought about in terms of building your personal brand. And that's also why I wrote an academic paper this year called Identity Positioning, a Macroscopic View on Personal Branding. And I wrote that as the intermissionary period between the first edition and second edition of my book. And really, I'm excited to take the second edition to a higher level that I'll have no problem, going on a book tour and selling copies and, hitting that, hitting all those accolades.
Awesome. So is there anything that really, you don't seem intimidated by, writing a book, whatever. Is there anything that intimidates you that you?
I have to say, Mark, you've asked me the best questions I've been asked this year alone. But a couple weeks ago, I was being interviewed on America's Small Business Network, ASBN.com.
Okay.
Anytime you have the 4-letter, ASBN, KRK, whatever, it's like, this is serious. Well, I applied to come on for their small business show.
Okay.
I got the response within 48 hours, set up an interview for the next week. And being interviewed by a classically trained journalist and reporter is entirely different than getting interviewed on a podcast. I am at complete ease having a conversation with you. I have no issue. My blood pressure is calm. My heart rate is low. I'm chugging coffee and it's still low, and it's fine. But I have to tell you, doing those news interviews, and I imagine this will continue to be the case as I do more local interviews, as well as, within the next 12 months, there's no reason why you might not see me on larger news networks.
Okay.
But I have to say, my blood pressure spiked, my hand was shaking.
Wow.
And that was the first time in quite some time where I've actually felt anxious doing something like this. And I think there's a hierarchy to it, right? You could go and have an interview with the smallest podcaster, or you could have an interview on the largest news network. You could be the local business owner or the largest corporation. And I think understanding that hierarchy, which you're playing at and the level you want to be at, is an entirely different beast in of itself.
It is. That is for sure. So, no, and thank you for telling me. I mean, that's the way my podcast, I like to have them, because I mean, it's just like we're having a cup of coffee. So, but yeah, I understand what you're saying too. I did a podcast the other day with I perceived, and it's just like and he's like, just calm down, and he calmed me down.
Yeah.
And it is very interesting. So Isaac, before we end the podcast, what else would you like the audience to know?
I would say it's really interesting to evaluate your own journey of like what you've done. And as an older gentleman, you went from doing odd jobs, whatever to make ends meet, right? And you discovered that there was more to life. You discovered faith, you discovered business, you discovered the internet, you discovered all these things. And I'm not saying like this was some caveman discovering fire, but I'm saying that this is somebody who realized that, hey, maybe there's more to life than what I've been building up until this point. And you as an older gentleman have went on to make a career for yourself in this space where most people would give up or retire. And I think that is a testament today of what people need to do. And whether you're 60 or 70 or you're 20 or you're 15, you can take and leverage all of these tools at your disposal. And there's no better time to build a business, despite maybe how difficult the economy is, or despite the lack of expendable income. There is still no shortage of opportunity. And I believe now you got the politician coming out of me, right? But I think that's really remarkable. And I just want to, say congratulations to you and thank you for the invitation to be here on the show.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you saying that. And I want to be an inspiration for people, older generations, because most of my people that are my peers don't get it. Mm-hmm. It's like, why wouldn't you get it? You're never too old. It's a mindset thing. You put it, it's like, well, I'm this age, I got to be doing this thing. Yeah. It's like, no, you don't, especially in today's world. Like there's so many possibilities, and just got to do it. So, because everybody's like, we should have been retiring by now. It's like, I don't plan on retiring ever.
Good.
On doing things that I love. So, but anyway, Isaac, thank you. I appreciate you so much for coming on to the Dreamcatcher podcast. And I look forward to seeing your, let's see, I'll look who's running for governor of Arkansas and all this. And yeah, that's going to be so awesome. I love that. I'm going to watch your journey. Definitely going to watch that. So on that, I'm going to end the podcast, and have a great rest of your day. And thanks again.
Mark, likewise, my friend.
Thank you.